What's up, everybody, and welcome back to First Fruits of Zion Reacts. If you like this video, don't forget to go to FFOZ.org, create an account, and read a bunch of articles for free. And we'll even give you something for free from our store if you create an account. So that would be good if you did that. Start learning the scriptures from a Messianic Jewish perspective. It's just more biblical. So today's video is Charlie Kirk talking with somebody. It's a debate. The file name says it's Charlie Kirk having a debate. So let's see who he debates and what they want to talk about.
So I truly believe as a follower of Yah, we are called to stand firm in our beliefs. I think that what you're doing is amazing, trying to get people to wake up. But here's where I start to kind of question you. You're very for Israel, and I totally understand why from a surface sense, from a biblical sense. But as a Christian man who is about to have a little girl in October, here's my problem.
Oh, I was born in October.
In the Talmud, they talk about sexual intercourse with the little girl is permitted if she is under 3 years of age. You can rape a non-Jew woman, and it is legal. And as a Christian, I mean, you look at our government; it's been infiltrated by the Jews. The founders of pornography are Jewish. The founders of transgender, the transgender movement, and the LGBT community are Jewish. That's exactly what was going on in Germany. I'm not excusing what Hitler did, but there's more to it.
Are you sure?
And so as a Christian, what is your biblical perspective to supporting a group of people that are promoting satanic acts and are excusing satanic behavior?
There's a lot there.
Well, it's he really, sometimes people will say like 8 things in a row, and by the time they get to the end, maybe you forgot the first thing they said. It can be really hard to remember it all. It's they call it the old gish gallop. You just throw out falsehoods one after another at rapid speed, and it takes. I read somewhere on the internet. I forget who this idea was attributed to, but it takes an order of magnitude more time to refute this kind of garbage than it does to come up with it. Like, you can just say this stuff, and then it might take an hour to unpack all this stuff and explain exactly why it's wrong. But by the time you get done explaining it, everyone's done listening. So hopefully Charlie will correct this fellow.
First, tell me what the Talmud is.
So the Talmud, I believe, is like a set of rules that it's kind of like our 10 Commandments, but on a bigger sense.
No, it's not that. So the Talmud would be to the Federalist Papers to the Constitution. So do you know what the Torah is?
Yeah, the Torah is like the Old Testament, like what
Close. Genesis, Exodus, Leviticus, Numbers, Deuteronomy.
It's their version of the Bible.
Yeah. Well, that Tanakh is their version. It's actually our version. We have an indecipherable Old Testament. So let me just kind of give you a little bit.
We have an indecipherable Old Testament. I think what Charlie's trying to say here is that our Old Testament is the Jewish Bible, and he was saying that the Torah is the first 5 books of the Bible, and that's correct.
Overview, and then we'll talk about the Talmud. So the Torah is the most holy text in Judaism, which is indistinguishable from that as Christians. Genesis, Exodus, Leviticus, Numbers, Deuteronomy. It's the 5 books of Moses, otherwise known as the Pentateuch. Then there is the Tanakh, which includes, the book of Joshua, 1st and 2nd Kings, 1st and 2nd Chronicles. It also includes Psalms and Proverbs, Ecclesiastes, Songs of Solomon, right? So on and so forth. Nehemiah, Jeremiah, Esther's. Okay. So that makes up the Old Testament, or they would call the Tanakh, which is basically Torah, Nephilim, and Kvetchim. Okay.
Oh, Charlie. Torah, Nephilim, and Kvetchim. That's close. It's Torah, Nevi'im, and Ketuvim. Nevi'im is prophets, and Ketuvim is writings. Nephilim are the mysterious beings from Genesis chapter 6, and Kvetchim is probably maybe means whiners. I don't know. Maybe a Yiddish term or a neologism drawn from Yiddish. It's kind of a funny idea to call people Kvetchim, but that's he just got a little tongue tied there.
And then there's the Talmud. The Talmud is interpretation of the Torah and of the Tanakh. It is basically rabbis arguing back and forth. I don't know about those specific verses. People that are in Orthodox Judaism say that is not true. I don't know. They'll have to refute and respond to that. I'm not a...
I can do that. I'm not an Orthodox Jew either, if you couldn't tell by looking. No, I got no kippah. The discussion on a girl of 3 years old in the Talmud, to my reading and to my understanding, is a discussion about if such a person is assaulted, does that person now lose their halachic status of being a virgin? And the opinion that's being cited is that she actually does not lose that status. She's still counted as a virgin, which can be pretty important when you're looking to get married later. If someone maybe wants to marry a virgin, there's some kinds of people in Israel that are only supposed to marry virgins. When you look at the laws concerning priesthood and so forth, so it could be important whether or not you're a virgin. It's not permissible to sexually assault anyone in Judaism. Sexual assault in Judaism is counted as regular assault plus some other crimes, and it's punishable often by death, because to have illicit sexual intercourse in Judaism, that's a big no-no. But they have to, when it comes to deciding like whether someone's a virgin or not, that's an important halachic status. So you have to go through every eventuality and every possibility and draw the lines. It's like people think there's so many rules about the Sabbath, but the first guy to break the Sabbath got stoned for it, for picking up sticks. So you really need to be clear on what exactly is a violation of the Sabbath and what is not, what's forbidden and what's permissible. And so these various halachic ideas in Judaism are hashed out in great detail. And unfortunate cases like that of the girl of 3 years old are discussed, but it's not permissible. It's not permissible to do anything like that with a child in Jewish law.
Master of the Talmud. I do know the Torah very, very well. And I can tell you right now, nowhere in the Torah does it say anything that you just described or articulated. So you asked the question, why should we care about Jews? And I will address the other specific points. We are called to bless the Jews as Christians. In fact, you are a Christian, right?
I am, but
what religion was Jesus?
He was Hebrew. He was not the modern. Well,
he was Jewish.
He was not Jewish. He was Hebrew.
Well, hold on. He was from Judea, wasn't he?
Correct, but Jews.
No, he was from Galilee. Judea. I guess Judea is a different region of the Holy Land than Galilee. But there may be. There may have been times when a map that says Judea would have included the Galilee. I don't know. But geographically, we would normally refer to them separately. A Jew doesn't mean someone from Judea. That's a Jew. That's maybe they'll get into that more. If they don't, I will.
At that time,
well, hold on.
The modern Jews are not the true chosen people of Yah. They created their own country in the 1940s. They established, this is their doctrine, the Yebahamath 11b. That the little girl is permitted if she is 3 years of age. Charlie, as a man of Yah, how can you justify and defend a group of people?
I don't justify that. That's disgusting.
But you're supporting them.
No. Time out. I will say, though, that I've never met a single Jew that believes that or understands it. I encourage you to find a rabbi and confront him with that.
They have videos all over the internet.
No, yeah, it's nothing false is ever on the internet, right? But I encourage you.
It's live interviews.
No, I encourage you to go to a rabbi and ask him that very specific question. But let me ask you, when it says very clearly, when Paul says that we should bless the keepers of the law, which is the Hebrews, do you believe that?
I do.
Okay, so we should.
Modern day Jews are not the original Hebrews.
So help me understand that. So do you mean the Ashkenazi Jews, or do you mean the Sephardic Jews? Because they're.
What does that have to do with it? The guy. I think what the guy is referencing here. He's not a Rastafarian. I don't know why he keeps using that personal name of God that you hear the Rastafarians use. He's referring to what I think the Khazar conspiracy theory that and maybe that's why Charlie is asking whether he means Ashkenazim or Sephardim. But the Khazar conspiracy theory is that Ashkenazi Jews are not descended from the Israelites of the Bible, and that they're people who converted to Judaism en masse in like I think the early medieval period or somewhere in the medieval period, and so they're not biologically related to all the great Bible heroes. And first of all, you can convert to Judaism and then you become Jewish. But second of all, we'll put a link in the comments to some articles. We have an article on these weird conspiracy theories about the Talmud that I think Jeremiah wrote, my colleague Jeremiah Michael, and we have another one that I wrote about the Khazar conspiracy theory. It was there's nothing to it really. There's nothing behind it. There's no evidence that it's true. It's just another one of those weird. It's part of the white supremacist cinematic universe there. Just another anti-Semitic conspiracy theory. But I debunked it in that article, or at least explained why it's not true. You can just do genetic tests. You can test people's DNA now, and we found out all the Ashkenazim are Jewish. They're not to say that you can't convert. Even if they were converts, that would count. They're descendants of converts.
Do you know the difference between an Ashkenazi and a Sephardic Jew?
Not necessarily.
Okay, so that's very important. So what you're probably talking about is the Ashkenazi Jews. Ashkenazi Jews are Eastern Europeans that came into the region in the 1940s,
Modern
and they are
Israel.
Jewish.
They founded Israel. Correct?
However, but tell me what.
Well, they're not. They're Jews, though. Also, like so you could say they're not Eastern Europeans in the sense of like from that, like that's where their distant ancestors for thousands of years lived. They're not Eastern Europeans like a Polish person is, right? They're Jews who sojourned there for many, many years, for centuries and centuries, because they were exiled from their land by the Romans.
What a Sephardic Jew is. A Sephardic Jew are people that never left the region. They tend to be Persian. They tend to be somewhat...
I'm Persian, half Persian. I'm Irish and Persian.
Fair enough. But
so that's not quite accurate. Sephardic is a little broader than that. A Jew who never left that region would probably be Sephardic, but you also find Sephardim all the way over to like Morocco and Italy and Spain. So they spread out quite a bit.
Sephardic Jews are actually biologically indistinguishable than the original people of Israel 4,000 years ago. So not exactly sure where we're jiving that.
Because that's the modern day Israel government. That's who Trump works with.
Well, no, it's actually both. It's both Ashkenazi and Sephardic.
It's not.
Well, no, again, if you've ever been to Israel, you could tell the difference in an Ashkenazi and a Sephardic immediately.
Yeah, they're both. They got both of them over there.
Sephardics are like screaming about like going to go to war, and the Ashkenazis are having a much more liberal Orthodox Shabbat service. But let me ask you a question. You say that the Jews run our government. Fair enough. You said that?
Yes.
If that's true, why is it we send so much money to Hamas and Iran?
Because Israel created Hamas.
Wait, we do?
Okay, wait. Help me understand this. So the Jews run our government, is
Correct.
what you say.
Correct.
And
Trump met with the Sanhedrin a few years ago, and they asked him to uphold the Noahide laws, which talk about killing Christians.
Well, so the
It's not a
Noahide
secret.
laws are actually, we live under the Noahic covenant, and nowhere does it say it should kill Christians. What are you talking about?
The Noahide laws are the upholding of so Trump works for the Jews.
Tell me what the Noahide laws are.
Wow.
The Noahide laws is a group of laws that the Jews live by that specifically say that they have guillotines. It talks about the beheading of the it starts with the G. I forget the exact word they used to describe what they would say Gentiles. They have a word Nonim or something
Goy,
Goy,
which means nation
Correct.
in Israel. Do
Correct.
you know that?
Okay.
So anyone who is not a Jew is called a Goy. Goy
And
literally means...
they all deserve what they say.
So let me just make sure I understand. So Jesus Christ, who himself was a Hebraic, Torah observant, Shabbat observant Jew, or whatever you want to call it, right? Because Jew just means you're from Judea. That's all it means, okay?
No, it doesn't. It doesn't. So that's the term Jew etymologically derives from Judea or Judah, probably. But that's where Judea also comes from the Hebrew Yehuda, which we bring into English as Judah. And Yehudim is the Hebrew word for Jews, and we bring that in to English as Jews. The term does derive from the geographical area, which does in turn derive from the name of one of Jacob's 12 sons. So there was a time where during which there were two kingdoms. You can read about this in 1st, 2nd Kings, 1st and 2nd Chronicles. You had the northern kingdom of Israel and the southern kingdom of Judah. The northern kingdom was exiled by Sennacherib and the Assyrians in 721 or 722 BCE. And the southern kingdom of Judah was exiled by the Babylonians in around 586 BCE. And I hope those dates are right. I am catastrophically bad with numbers, as those of you who have been watching these videos for a while have probably already discerned. During the Persians conquered the Babylonians, right? And during that time, you have these people who are exiled from Judea, right? The southern kingdom of Judah. And they sort of just became known as Jews. Jew became a term by which they were all called, whether or not they actually descended from the tribe of Judah. And so during that time, 2,500 years ago or so, the term Jew began to be used as a catch-all term for Israelite. It's just a synonym now for Israelite. It doesn't mean from Judea, although there may have been a time in history where that is what it meant, again, 2,500 years ago. Hebrew is a term that I think people use when they want to try to make a distinction between the Bible folk and Jews of today. To try to use different terminology to see them as two different groups of people. They're not two different groups of people, and Hebrew is also just a synonym for Jewish or for Israelite. Although you don't hear it much anymore. It was more popular back in like the 1800s into the 1900s, and but since the most common term for this group of people now is Jew or Jewish, in English anyway.
You know that, right?
Yeah.
That's where it comes from. Tribe of Judah, then formed Judea. Jew comes from Judea. Jesus Christ himself honored the law. Does that mean anything to you?
It does. So if we're going to say Jesus honored the law, how is justifying
And the keepers of the law
of a child under 3 years old?
That's not the Talmud is not the law.
That is what they preach in Israel. They preach in their schools. They talk about it openly.
I encourage you to find me a singular instance of somebody in Israel talking about the legitimate of 3-year-olds. That doesn't exist.
Look at our government in Hollywood, who's run by Jews. This trafficking. The Jews run this.
He had to change the subject because there isn't. People are not advocating for that sort of behavior in Israel or anywhere. And now he's talking about like the Jews run Hollywood conspiracy theory. So that's wild. I think we've already talked about that one on the channel here.
Trafficking there itself, Charlie. Donald Trump himself.
But it's easy to say they run the Jews. Oh, the Jews run everything. If the Jews run everything, why is there so much anti-Semitism?
Because anti-Semitism is a construct created by the New World Order agenda that is being pushed onto us.
Jews, it's kind of like global warming. And your theory is very similar to global warming. If it gets warmer, it's global warming. If it gets cooler, it's global warming. If there's anti-Semitism, it's the Jews. If there's no anti-Semitism, it's the Jews. We send money to Hamas, it's the Jews. We send money to Israel, it's the Jews. So at some point, you have to tell me, like, they basically control everything, whether it hurts them or it helps them. Is that correct?
Israel wants the New World Order. They're the Synagogue of Satan. It says so in Revelation, Charlie.
He can't answer that question because Charlie has pointed out that this guy will just blame the Jews for everything, sort of reflexively. Now he's getting into another one. He's getting into the Synagogue of Satan thing. I'm sure we have an article about that on Messiah Online somewhere. Check the description of this video. And we'll have our content manager, Jordan, just paste every article that's relevant to this discussion. You can go read those. When John the Revelator talks about the Synagogue of Satan, he's not talking about Jews. He's talking about people who say that they're Jews, but are not. So that's an important. He literally says that in there. And the only way you can misinterpret that is if you're starting from a viewpoint that believes that the Jews are not God's holy and chosen people, and that there's something called like a true Jew or a true Israelite, which we talked about that at length in the Durbin React video, which you can find in the playlist here on the channel.
You think
the Synagogue
Israel
of Satan.
is the Synagogue of Satan?
The Synagogue of Satan.
Okay, actually, it doesn't say that.
In the Bible, it says that there will be a group of people who call themselves the chosen people of Yah, but they are the Synagogue of Satan. Charlie, we live in the end times. Trump works for
I can't agree with that. So let me ask you, since you believe we live in the end times, what do you think? Do you think the modern creation of Israel is fulfillment of biblical prophecy?
It is not.
Okay, then we disagree. Then what do you think it is?
It is a satanic agenda to push a new world order. That's why they were fought in the 1940s. World War II was fought not over what everyone thought it was fought of. Every war is fought by, it is funded by the rich, the Rockefellers, all the rich, the Rothschilds.
Okay, so yeah, let me ask you a question.
They funded all those wars.
Was Hitler bad?
I think Hitler was bad, yes. Hitler was bad, yes. But
it took him a little too long to say that, and the crowd's going wild behind him there. That's kind of, I mean, very sad and concerning, but also kind of funny. Do rich people fund wars? Yeah, but what does that have to do with Jews? I mean, Smedley Butler wrote this book, War is a Racket, you know. He's a U.S., he was a 4-star general, became disillusioned, you know. So reputable people have come to the conclusion that war is not great, and that maybe it can be fought for. People go out there and kill each other for terrible reasons, and there is such a thing as war profiteering. But World War II was fought over what people say it was fought over. Hitler wanted to kill every Jew. He wanted to kill every Slav, and he wanted to colonize Poland and then keep going east, and just fill the whole land with Germans after he had annihilated the entire Slavic race. He made that pretty clear. He said it over and over. And there were some people who thought that they didn't want that, mainly Slavs in the beginning, and so they fought back pretty hard, and they gave the Nazis a whooping. Then we swooped in at the end, toward the end there, and did our part.
Did the Holocaust happen?
The Holocaust did happen.
How many people died?
Not 6 million.
How many?
Answering faster.
It was not 6 million.
How many?
I don't have an exact number, Charlie.
Yes.
I don't have an exact number. It wasn't 6 million.
Okay, but you said it's not 6 million. You must have an alternative. How do you know it's not 6 million?
Because there wasn't even 6 million Jews in Germany.
Okay, well, I mean, you tell me. You're the expert. How many people died?
Charlie, what books?
Well, the correct answer to that is that a lot of these Jews that were killed in the Holocaust weren't in Germany. They were in Poland, and so Hitler went over there and killed them. Gosh, that's a softball, Charlie. It's a softball.
What were they burning? What books were they burning? The Talmud.
Well,
they kicked a Rothschild out of the Berlin Bank.
So, okay, I mean, was Hitler justified in his critique of Judaism?
I don't think he went about it the right way. I think he was wrong by killing people.
So Hitler just implemented it wrong.
So I'm not justifying Hitler. I do not support Hitler.
You know you're losing the debate when you have to insert that in.
No,
I'm not justifying Hitler.
No, because the genocide of anyone is not okay. The genocide of anyone, even Palestinians, the genocide of innocent children in Palestine is not okay.
I'm glad you say it's a genocide.
But here's the problem. The reason why Jews have been run out of 109 countries throughout history is because every time they get into a country, they try and take it over. In Nazi Germany, again, they are having transgender surgeries, underground transgender surgeries. They were promoting homosexuality in schools. They were literally preaching a pagan way of life.
Wait, so who was Mengele?
I don't know who Mengele is.
You don't know Mengele? Mengele was the Nazi doctor who actually was the one that was performing so many of these surgeries. It wasn't the Jews alone that were doing this. The Nazis themselves were doing these horrific surgeries.
Okay, so they may be talking about two different things. Mengele was this terrible, even for a Nazi, being a Nazi is absolutely wicked. It's the bottom of the barrel of evil. Mengele, even within that context, was an absolute sadist, terrible guy. Did weird experiments on people. Of little scientific value, mainly just because he was a sicko. And what the guy with the beard is talking about is that in the pre-war in Weimar, Germany, there were institutes for studying gender and sexuality, and there were sex reassignment surgeries. But again, to blame that on the Jewish people. It's just another canard, another anti-Semitic conspiracy theory. I don't know. I don't think we have an article on that one specifically, but you can just see a pattern with this guy. He just blames the Jews for everything. run out of 109 countries. The reason they've been run out of, they have been run out of a lot of countries. I have a neat little map on my computer of the, expulsions of Jews from different countries in Europe. And a lot of them is, the year is there that it happened. A lot of the countries that did it multiple times. The reason for that is because that's what the Bible said would happen to the Jewish people if they weren't faithful to the Sinai covenant. He said, I'm going to send the sword after you, and you're going to be running around, and you're not going to have any permanent place to live, and it's not going to go well for you if you don't keep the commandments that I gave to you on Mount Sinai. So this is, this is something. The way that I've heard it put from one rabbi is that it might have been Laser Brody or someone like that, was that when bad things happen to the Jewish people, it's just a stick in Hashem's hand. Whatever it is that the bad thing is, it ultimately comes from Hashem. It comes from God, and He's trying to bring His people back to Him in repentance. It's not because of something inherently bad about Jews that they are experiencing these hardships throughout history.
Now, let me just kind of pause. You believe that the Jews run the American government.
That's not a secret, Charlie.
Well, no, I find it hilarious that
all of Trump's cabinet is Jewish.
Well, hold on. Trump's whole cabinet. J.D.
They
Vance
have Jewish connections. They're married to a Jew. They have Jewish descent.
J.D. Vance is Catholic. Tulsi Gabbard is Hindu.
Jewish. They all have Jewish connections.
But you just
every single yeah.
Okay, they're not Jewish, but they might know someone who is. Like, I don't know who doesn't have a Jewish connection somewhere. Like, they're people. They're out there in the world doing stuff. You might have met one.
Every single person
said they were all Jewish. Christy Nome is an evangelical
They've converted
Christian.
to Judaism or Catholicism. They all have an AIPAC advisor. Not a single person in Congress can make a decision without asking their Israeli Jewish AIPAC advisor if it's okay to say.
The entire list.
Israel did 9/11, Charlie.
Oh, they did. Wow.
Why are we in the middle? I served. Why were we in the Middle East?
Oh my gosh.
Well, I mean, you can,
why were we in the Middle East?
You can reject involvement in the Middle East without also believing Israel did 9/11. So if Israel did 9/11, help me understand this. Who were the hijackers of the planes?
They weren't hijackers.
Oh,
CIA and Israel worked together.
No. Explain to me what happened on the aircraft.
Okay, first off, what we have to understand, there's only one plane that actually crashed.
No,
okay,
there were three.
No, the building's imploded.
Okay,
if a plane's going to hit a building, why would the building fall down?
Time out. Flight 93, did it exist?
This guy is this the first time he's been outside? I mean, these are just like wild internet conspiracy theories. I don't know. What do you say to that, to someone who's gone that far down the rabbit hole? The thing that the Jews did everything, even 9/11. I mean, it's kind of sad. I feel bad for this guy, but I don't know. I don't have anything prepared to refute that particular conspiracy theory.
Flight 93 existed, yes.
Okay, so who tried to hijack that plane?
They sacrificed those people to make it look like Bush was targeted because they wanted to cover up Bush's involvement.
So
he just happened to be in Texas reading a book to elementary kids, and they're reading a sign on a whiteboard
let me say
that talks about towers falling, Charlie.
Anti-Semitism.
We have been lied to since the beginning of this country. Jews, Freemasons, all of it's a satanic agenda. Israel is the Synagogue of Satan. They're killing innocent people in Palestine over the guise of sovereignty. New World Order is coming, Charlie.
Guys, let me tell you, anti-Semitism is literally a brain cancer, as you could see.
How is this anti-Semitic,
there you go, Charlie?
How
is it anti-Semitic?
How is it anti-Semitic to say that Jews did 9/11? I'm sorry. Oh, they say history repeats. First is tragedy, then is farce. Is that what's happening here?
How is it anti-Semitic?
How am I hating on Jews when I'm saying
you keep interrupting me. Israel did 9/11 is a rather anti-Semitic thing to say. Explain to me Flight 93 and the families aboard that lost their loved ones. Who actually was the hijacker? Was it a Mossad agent?
No.
Okay, who was it?
The government put them there.
No, who was it?
They crashed a plane intentionally to make it look like George W. Bush was targeted.
Who was the hijacker? No, this is important. They can never answer this question. Who was the hijacker?
They didn't have real hijackers, Charlie. They were plants.
Okay. So when
they were plants, CIA, Mossad created
So when
Hamas.
they got the black box,
the people from Flight 93 called their families and said the plane is being hijacked. Were they also plants? And then they all died. Like who's willing to give their life to fake a hijacking like that? I mean, this is wild, man.
Of course, it was all just like a conspiracy.
Just like they found the passport miraculously 2 miles down from the crash site in
I'm sorry,
New York.
what?
They just happened to find one of the hijackers' passports laying on the ground 2 miles away from the crash site in New York. It just happened to be there. They just walked up and found it. They just randomly happened to find a perfectly good passport.
With that piece
Look
of
it
data.
up. Look up the passport.
Look, here, there's so much wrong with your worldview, but the biggest problem with your worldview is this, is that you are looking to other people to blame for all of our problems, especially a small group of people, albeit flawed. Every group is flawed. I'm not going to defend everything that every group has ever done, but I find it to be rather insidious and very treacherous, because you're going out of your way to try to create this big web of connections, and it's the Jews, and it's the Jews, and it's the Jews, and why are people overweight? Well, it's because of the Jews, and why are people sad? Because it's the Jews.
I never said that.
No, you're heavily inferring that every problem imaginable is the Jews.
I did not say every problem.
Well,
He didn't. Charlie. I see the point Charlie's making. The guy probably does actually think that's because of the Jews that we have the obesity epidemic. But what the basic thrust of what Charlie's saying here is correct. When you get someone who's this far down the rabbit hole of conspiracy theories, then they're saying these really wild things, and blaming the Jews for everything. This is because they are not able to find constructive ways to deal with their own problems, and it is sad. But life's much easier if you have someone to blame for all your problems. I mean, I see why people fall into this. The world is complicated, and life's much easier if we pretend it's simple. And life's much easier with a scapegoat. It's important not to scapegoat people. The classic scapegoat here is the Jews or Israel. I would encourage you not to scapegoat anybody. Try to find out why things are the way they are. You use your head a little bit. Think about it a little more deeply. Read a lot of history books.
I mean, he basically did, everybody, right?
The problems within government, yes.
But it does beg the question, though, which is that your obsession with this group of people is so unhealthy, and it's not merited. In fact,
it's a passion for the truth.
Well, I would say, the people that control our government, the people
Satanists.
who control our government,
Pedophiles, Satanists.
Okay, I actually think the people who control our government are secular leftist Marxists in the deep state that are not exactly the Jews, but they're people that want to overturn Donald Trump being able to deport illegal aliens in this country.
So this kind of took a left turn, pun intended. So we have now a different scapegoat, which is secular leftist Marxists, in the deep state. That's also just kind of a scapegoating. That's not the situation. And also, you have to be really careful throwing the term Marxism and communism around where it's not warranted, because that is also that you'll fall into the same trap of anti-Semitic conspiracy theories. Hitler did the same thing. Like, communists everywhere, communists responsible for all the problems in the world, and then it was like, and then Jews invented communism, and they came up with this idea of like cultural Marxism, and without any real understanding of what is Marxism, what anything the guy said. And so I would be careful there, Charlie. You don't want to fall into the same weird trap of conspiracy theories and scapegoating. Believe it or not, there are just people who disagree with you politically, and they're honest. A lot of them are honest players. They just have different beliefs than you.
I think the people actually controlling our country are not the Jews. Actually, it's a combination of people that want to see the United States of America cripple and fall and keep open borders and mass inflation.
The Jews.
Yeah, exactly. It's your answer to everything.
Charlie, it's the New World Order. It's in Scripture.
Well, again, I read the same Scripture you do. You're heavily inferring and reading into Daniel and Ezekiel and
the Old
into
Testament
Revelation.
still applies.
Okay, yes, I do. The Old Testament does still apply. Yeah.
The Old Testament does still apply. I wonder if this guy is like a Hebrew roots guy, if that's why he's using a personal name of God, a shortened personal name of God. and the look about him there. I don't know. I don't want to say I'm not disparaging him. It's just seen, maybe the pieces are coming together in my mind here, where this guy's coming from. Not that all Hebrew roots people are weird conspiracy theorists. A lot of them are just trying to figure out what to do with the Old Testament. But the Old Testament does still apply. But you gotta, it doesn't apply to everyone the same way. And we have maybe a million articles about that.
Yes, I'm inferring into the Old Testament.
Yes, again, you're inferring a lot into the Old Testament. Have the Jews ever done anything good?
No.
Wow.
Not the modern day Jews, no. The modern day Jews, no. Yah's chosen people, yes. Yah's chosen people, yes. The modern day Jews, there's a reason they were not founded until the 1940s. It's not biblical prophecy, Charlie. There's a new world order coming. Trump and Elon are pushing it. They're controlled by the Jews. All they do is worship the Jews. Trump pulled Netanyahu's seat out for him.
God forbid somebody be polite.
May God bless you and keep you. I will give you the Levitical blessing.
I pray you wake up, Charlie.
Yeah, thank you. Let me just say a final thought on this, guys. Anti-Semitism is literally a brain rot that stops your ability to think independently, and you start blaming everything on a very small group of people. And let me say, that has no place in decent society, even saying, well, Hitler wasn't wrong about everything. Oh, okay. Next question.
Yeah. That's true. Anti-Semitism is cancerous, and it just clouds your judgment. It keeps people from being able to see what's really going on in the world. It makes people think they are possessive of some secret knowledge, the key to unraveling everything that's ever happened in the world. And if you think you have that, then you're not going to know anything, because if knowledge, encounters you, it'll bounce off. So it's important not to subscribe to weird conspiracy theories. And I would just include the Marxist deep state among those conspiracy theories personally. I don't think that's a real thing. I think that's about all we had time for. Check the description for links to articles addressing many, many, many of these topics. We've written a lot about anti-Semitic conspiracy theories, and you can get more details about all that in those free articles, free for you to read. And while you're there on the website, go ahead and create a free account, and we'll give you a little something for doing that. Join us next time, and that's all for now. Thanks for watching.